the nation. Let me bring in my guests and go straight to Eran Wickramaratne. He is the member of parliament and also former state minister of finance. He's joining me live from Colombo. Eran, thank you so much. I want to understand what really is the situation on ground right now. We have seen very dramatic visuals and very worrying as well.
Yes, it's an unprecedented crowd. That it's a small country with 22 million people, and about 1 million people probably poured into the city today. And this cry has been there for the president to go for quite some time. Many attempts were made, but finally, unfortunately, it came to the point that people had to actually march in. And they, as you have already said, basically taken over the official residences and offices of the Prime Minister and the President. So the cry is for them to resign, and there has been no official communication, and all party leaders meeting was just held and just concluded a few minutes ago. And one of the conclusions, the vast majority of party leaders said is that both the President and the Prime Minister should resign immediately. And according to the Constitution, then the Speaker of the House becomes the acting President. And then, of course, a new government will have to be sworn in the interim period.
Okay, Eran, tell me, when Ranil Wickramasinhe took charge last month, it was seen as, it was a moment of great expectations. It was a moment that he could perhaps bail out this entire crisis, the country out of this crisis. But it seemed that people lost hope even in him.
That was really a false hope because really what should have been done at that point is to appoint an all-party government with the president himself agreeing that he would resign, or what they call technically was to cut the powers of the executive president. Constitutional amendments were suggested by the opposition, by the party I belong to, and that was ignored. In fact, I was engaged myself with the president for 2.5 hours trying to explain things to him. That was a month ago. That was ignored, and then he brought in Ranil Wickramasinhe as prime minister. So that was really never going to work because people were revolting against a very powerful presidency and basically mismanagement, misgovernance, which has led the country into an economic crisis which we have never experienced before. And lots of people are having lots of hardships. And finally, they have to march on the city today to really make this change. So we haven't had an announcement yet, but there has to be an announcement that the president and the prime minister will go. But the recommendation the speaker will make to the president is that the vast majority of party leaders have asked for their resignation. And then we have to take it from there.
Okay, Eran, who will make that announcement that the president perhaps has fled the country, leaving the Sri Lankans to fend for themselves, the country that is going through its worst crisis ever with the record inflation, food prices skyrocketing, government coffers running dry? Who will make that announcement that president has left, the prime minister's palace or his home has been taken over by the protesters? This has never happened in that beautiful country. Who's going to make that announcement, that moment? Who will that be?
So as you said, there are conflicting reports. We have to work on the assumption that the president is here because the Speaker of the House chaired the all-party leaders meeting, and the Speaker said that he was going to convey the recommendations that came out of the meeting. And therefore, the assumption is that the president is around. Obviously, he's not in his official residence, and naturally, for security reasons, he is being safeguarded. So, the president himself, after he gets the recommendations, will have to basically make the announcement, and otherwise, he has to give notice of it. And then the announcement will become public. So the speaker will definitely be asked for whether he has had a communication from the president after this request has been made. We are expecting it to be done quickly so that it will reduce the tensions and the people will get off the streets and therefore within the constitutional framework that a proper transition can be made.
This is a humanitarian crisis as much as it is a financial crisis. What has been really the trigger in the last 24 hours that we saw protesters gather outside the presidential palace? And it was evident that perhaps the security cordon around the president, they also gave in. They understood that these are ordinary Sri Lankans who wanted change of guard and they cannot be seen as standing with the president. They would rather stand with the ordinary people.
Yes, so this protest had been building for a while from political parties, then civil society took over the protest. They've always been very peaceful protests. But a month ago, on the 9th of May, the then Prime Minister, basically the president's brother, former Prime Minister, convened a meeting. And after that meeting, some of these people armed went to deal with the protesters. And that is when Sajith Premadasa, the leader of the opposition, and I accompanied him myself, we went to stand in solidarity, and then we were also attacked. And that night, there was lots of things that happened across the country because people went around really burning a few houses and things like that, which was very, very unfortunate. Violence was created. So on the 9th of May, the Prime Minister, Mahinda Rajapaksa, basically had to resign. So 9th of June is 1 month later.
Yes.
And this was building up. And then finally a decision was taken that if nothing much has happened within a month, maybe that everybody should get on the street and come into the capital city. And that's exactly what happened 1 month later. So there was a bit of a build-up. It was not a sudden
who
trigger.
Really led,
it's well thought
Who
through.
is leading these protests? Is it being led by opposition parties?
No, I would say that there are many leaders to this protest, right? The traditional political parties are there and they have their adherents and members who are participating. And then there is civil society organizations who have been leading these protests, and particularly in the capital city, they have been taking a lead, these civil society organizations. And there have been youth and there have been youth fronts. So there is no one particular group as such. There have been many, many groups actually who have come together. And the protest is, cannot be monopolized by any one political party. That would be completely unfair to say that. So lots of people have come forward, and
Okay.
the youth, the middle classes have come out on the street. So we are seeing a phenomena we have never seen before, that everybody, the whole nation seems to be coming together saying that there needs to be a change.
All right, Eran, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts